outboard engines that are the most massive parts of the airplane. It's impossible. So the big verdict on the official version is it is physically absurd. It is impossible. Physically impossible in the real world that we know anyway. Maybe they have some other one. Now the media like to show you this kind of thing when there's a big hole because the facade collapsed as a result of the fire later in the day. And here's Ashcroft. Remember him mugging outside, right? Those were the good old days under Ashcroft. And we have Gonzalez. And this now is the Shanksville crater. Another Boeing is alleged to have disappeared here. They say there's a mine. Well, then go into the mine and bring up the parts, and they can't do this. And I would have to say also that in the other one, the Pentagon one, they do come out with a handful of stuff. You could put it in a bushel basket. And there's a couple of rotors, but they're nowhere near big enough to represent the jet engines that were involved. Now, from my point of view, the biggest problem with the official version of 9/11 is something they refuse to talk about. The threat that was delivered to Bush through the Secret Service, Angel is next. In other words, we are going to shoot down the presidential plane. So I don't believe that Bush is told in advance. Who would tell Bush in advance? Bush is not important enough to be told in advance. Bush is simply a cretin who will do what he is told to do, and that's exactly what he did do. But he's not told in advance. There's no engraved invitation that comes in saying, the honor of your presence is requested at a terrorist attack, and you're supposed to do this, that, and the other thing. No, why would you tell him? You would not tell him. Cheney may be told more, but I don't think everything. The axiomatic point of view that I represent anyway is that the presidency and the vice presidency after Franklin D. Roosevelt at least are puppet institutions. They don't have real power because what we have here is not a dictatorship, it's an oligarchy. An oligarchy can be very nasty, as we're seeing, but it's not a dictatorship. That's maybe one of Bush's missteps. So this is an ultimatum, I believe, from the rogue network to Bush. And it's accompanied, well, it's a threat to attack Air Force One. That's why he has to go to Barksdale and Offutt. The threat involved is to say, Bush, you launch the war of civilizations in conventional form in Afghanistan, or else we'll launch it in nuclear form wherever we want. Cairo, Tehran, Amman, whatever it is, Islamabad, we'll start it in nuclear form. How can you do that? Because we have the codes. And here are some codes that we have. Here are some other codes that we have. So essentially, it's the threat of an assassination and a coup. Cheney can become president. Why not? Escalate the entire thing. And there's a lot more to be said about this. I urge you to read my chapter. There's what looks like a kind of a half-hearted attempt to assassinate Bush first thing in the morning on the day of, and so forth. And we have Buffett and Scowcroft at Offutt Air Force Base. So it's a threatening call that comes in with a broad array of code words indicating that the people making the call have access to the top levels of the main agencies of the U.S. government. The rogue network speaks. This is the moment where the rogue network speaks. Now, a lot of people have speculated, is he the cat who ate the canary, saying, oh, I've done it, I'm winning. I don't see that at all. I see pure terror. I see a pathetic little man who is caught in a situation that he cannot comprehend, and he's looking at Fleischer is holding up this thing saying, don't say anything, and he doesn't, and he says, I sat there and projected power. That's the modern idea of the presidency, is that it's a ceremonial post where you project power. But what, of course, he doesn't do is he doesn't say, call out the fighters, call out the Coast Guard, call out. No crisp orders, no commander-in-chief, right? You could impeach him just for this. Or you could have defeated him. Kerry could have defeated him in the campaign, saying, why didn't you get up and do something? Instead of sitting there for 10 minutes. But I would say, though, that the difference is that in the course of the day, he capitulates. He says, what is it that they want me to do? I'm going to do it, of course. And since then, he has become the most important public spokesman, right? He is the main salesman of the myth. He's the one who pronounces the myth, and he returns to it and reinforces it. But it doesn't mean that he knew anything. I always found the bumper sticker Bush knew, contradiction in terms. Can't know anything. Can't know anything. Another, how about this? In May of last year, Small plane approaches Washington, Congress evacuated, White House evacuated, everybody evacuated, Bush not told, out riding his bike. Same thing. He's a puppet. He's a puppet. He'll do what he's told, but it's an important point, because if you have a Bush-Cheney approach to this thing, you get rid of them and your invisible government is still there. You haven't solved anything permanently. Now, a couple of things about the recent events. The National Security Agency wiretaps, okay? These came out in the New York Times on December 16th. December 19th, Bush had a press conference. He invoked September 11th myth 8 times in less than 5 minutes. Now, this by itself is enough to silence those who say, oh, September 11th is dead as an issue. Don't care about September 11th. Forget about September 11th. Nonsense. September 11th is the heart of the matter. Always has been. And it shows with Bush is pulling the myth out now more than once a day. He's taking the myth and shaking it in the face of his critics. I think this increases the possibility that the myth can be debunked and discarded, because he's using it all the time. And at the Axis for Peace in Brussels, my good friend Phil Berg came forward and he said, what we need is a 9/11 deep throat. We need somebody who was part of this to come forward and testify, under, obviously, security precautions. There's also this question. Maybe you asked yourself, the FISA court, right, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, they will put a wiretap on a ham sandwich. You don't need, it's just pro forma, right? You fill in the blanks and you send it over and you've got a wiretap, right, for any of us. So why does Bush insist on not going to the FISA court? Why does he get, extra trouble? Who needs it? Why not go to the FISA court for everything you need? My approach is, and again, you have to know about 9/11 in order to see this, is that what he's trying to cover up is that many of the intercepts have to do with 9/11 cover-up, and therefore with 9/11, and or the running of ongoing terrorism, such as Madrid 04, London 05, and so forth. Because the National Security Agency in Fort Meade is this vacuum cleaner, right? And it brings in everything. And if you go through with a computer according to code words, look what pops out. You don't want a judge seeing it. And therefore, as soon as you get a judge into the act, there's somebody that you probably works for you, but maybe not. So I think this is why he did not do the obvious. Now, I don't know if this has been noticed. This is from the Washington Post. Bear with me, got some quotes. Remember, there was a 9/11 resolution on September 14, 2001, the new Gulf of Tonkin resolution. And the first request that Bush made was to deter and preempt any future acts of terrorism or aggression against the United States. That was Bush's original request. It's a declaration of war against the world. You do anything you want as long as you want. It's rejected. It's too broad, right? This is Senator Daschle writing it. Now, the Congress says, no, we won't give you that. We'll give you all necessary and appropriate force against those nations, organizations, or persons the President determines planned, authorized, committed, or aided the 9/11 attacks. Somewhat narrower. Because Bush is trying to say, you gave me the authority to wiretap all I wanted. Right? You gave it to me. And Daschle is trying to say, no, we didn't. Now, here's what Bush comes back with. At the last minute, Bush says, I want you to authorize all necessary and appropriate force in the United States and against those nations, organizations, or persons the President determines planned, authorized, committed, or aided the 9/11 actions. Now, that's civil war. Why does he want that? Why does he want force inside the United States? Well, it's a coup. And it's either there's going to be a coup and he wants to defend himself with military force against a coup, possible, but more likely he's going to have a coup, there's going to be a coup, and there may be unreliable military units. There may be some units that might fight. So he's got to have, by what authority do you wage civil war against that mountain division in upstate New York that refuses to follow the new coup,